Hello. We're going to call this meeting of the Growth Committee to order today. Can I get approval of the agenda? Councillor Lowe, the Mayor Reardon. Any disclosures of conflict of interest? None noted. We'll just move right into the City Market Strategic Plan presentation, and we'll start with David Doppelstein.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of Growth Committee. I'm very pleased to be before you today to talk about the final draft version of the City Market Strategic Plan. As you recall, approximately a month ago, we had our consulting team present to you the recommended draft plan from the City Market Strategic Plan Steering Committee. And since that time, we've basically shopped the plan around for public engagement. We had a tremendous response from the public and vendors and other stakeholders on the plan. And then our consulting team made some refinements, met with the steering committee just last week, and the steering committee has unanimously approved the plan for your consideration. And before I turn it over to our consulting team to share with you what has happened over the last month, I'd like to invite the mayor, who is the chair of the steering committee, just to give some remarks on behalf of the committee.
Thank you so much, David. What I will say is that in 1985, I moved to the Uptown and became a regular user of the market. And I've represented, that area of the city, the Ward 3 in 12 when I got on council along with Councillor Lowe. So this is super exciting for me to see this strategic plan for the market because of all the years that I've been going to the market. Like I said, since 1985 as a regular, probably 3-4 times a week user. It needs to be brought up to date. It needs a new brand. It needs a bit of a new look, and it needs it's the same direction, but it needs to be current. It's the direction it's always had to be, that meeting place, that central place for shopping and for meeting with people, and it's in the heart of the city. So it's always had that as its purpose and its vision, but it needs that enhanced, and it needs that to be brought into what we're looking for today. So we need to, we've got signage that should be changed. We have accessibility issues. We have washrooms issues. There's lots of things that need to be brought up to speed. And so this plan will do that. And so it's pretty exciting to see it happening. It's super exciting for me, like I said, to see it happening because it is just a gem in the city. And like I said, I think there's so many people that do use it. So this will really enhance the usability of it. So thanks, David, for giving me a couple of minutes to speak about it. So away we go. It's going to be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. And so just as a reminder, both to you, to the public, and to council, so today we're seeking the endorsement of Growth Committee for the strategic plan, the final version, and then at the July 24th meeting of council, this will be presented to council for their adoption. I would just like to point out, as we've heard and as you've seen, a tremendous amount of work has gone into this. I'd like to thank in a particular way the members of the steering committee who were appointed by Common Council, and they've volunteered their time for the last year and a half and done a tremendous amount of good work, and we couldn't be more grateful to them for the amount of work that they put in and the consultation and advice that they've given to the whole team through this whole process. We also want to thank our consulting team from FBM and Key North, who've done a tremendous amount of really solid work and have been incredibly responsive, and I think the product that you have before you today is something we can cherish and be really proud of as a community. And finally, what I would say is this is about direction for the market. We haven't mapped out every single step. We just know the destination and the journey of how we want to get there. But what I mean by that is there's direction, as you would see in the Growth Committee report about the motion that's before you today. And for the next, this is a plan to carry us through 10 years. And so every year we're going to be evaluating, and we're going to be implementing these actions and doing due diligence and individual actions as they arise. But we haven't necessarily gone into the weeds on exactly how much everything will cost or what the implications are for every single thing. There'll be time to continue to solicit feedback from vendors, from the public, from council for each of these initiatives. But this gives us our course. And so without further ado, I'd like to invite our consulting team. I believe they're here with us. Yeah, we have Kieran Hunt from FBM and Taylor Matheson from Key North, all the way from sunny Vancouver, I hope. And anyway, I'll happy to turn things over to Kieran for the presentation.
Thank you, David. Through the chair, Your Worship and Growth Committee, thank you very much for this opportunity to have myself and my colleague Taylor Matheson share with you the exciting final steps towards what we believe to be an incredible vision for a refreshed and rejuvenated city market. I will share my screen and walk you through the presentation. Certainly have, hopefully we have a nice discussion afterwards. And I'll just get confirmation that you can see my screen.
Yep, we're all set.
Great. Thanks very much. Appreciate that. So again, we are very excited about this process that we have gone through in this strategy. This has been about over a year in the making, and as with all good things, they take time, a lot of listening, a lot of investing with the steering committee and the community and the vendors as well to get a full range of input and perspectives on what the city market means to people, both those that have lived there a long time as well as those that are new to the market, and understanding the strategic importance that this piece of property plays as a historic component. And with that, obviously, this strategic plan is only just the beginning. 2026 is rapidly approaching us, and what a time that will be for the city to be able to celebrate the 150th birthday of the city market. And this again speaks to the opportunity to provide that refresh and plan for that milestone. This is a beloved part of the community, and we are certainly aware of that. And one of the components that we'd like to take you through today is the last round of engagement and public consultation that we had through an online survey provided some great feedback for us to tweak and adjust and also reinforce our thinking where we may not have been clear enough in how valuable the heritage aspects are. And we'll talk a little bit about that and share with you, again, the common questions and takeaways that came from that last round of public input that was able to help shape our thinking. And then we'll just summarize again those strategic plan directions, which largely remain the same, but they do have some tweaks and refinements, again, coming out of this latest round of public input. One of the important things that came out of the engagement, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the survey, but it really was not to forget the heritage and historic value of this market. We include that throughout the strategic plan, but what we didn't do is we didn't have it front and center up front. And in the strategic plan now, we speak to the importance of the heritage and the historic elements as setting the stage for progress and not forgetting that is an important part of that. So we want to make sure that history remains relevant in the face of progress. There are many views, some that are, and you'll see some that are don't change anything, some that are change everything, and there's a large, really valuable spectrum in between. Preservation is an integral role to the strategic directions that we've presented, and that preservation results in uncovering stories that may have been forgotten or ignored. It's an important piece to revitalizing the uptown neighborhood, celebrating the local community on these shared experiences. We found that stories that from the steering committee members, as well as from those in the community that may not have been prevalent before, and there's hidden stories within the market itself today that we can uncover through the allocation of the improvements that we're proposing. The city market, these stories connect people, they connect vendors, they connect multiple generations from the past, but also I think it's important to realize the importance of connecting these generations as we move forward. This is a similar diagram to what we shared originally when we presented to you, but we wanted to add the the significance of the 372 respondents that responded to our Shape Your City survey, bringing our total engagement to over 720 perspectives and respondents. This particular last round was very exciting for us to realize in a just over a 3-week span to receive this level of input. It showed the importance of the market. We also realized there were, from what we like to track, are some of the Facebook groups, and while not all respondents are supportive or in favor, may have some differing views, we respect those opinions, and we've tried to integrate those where we can. Again, the first one being the integration of heritage as a value point and a value proposition right up front in the strategic plan. This is no changes to this from what we shared before. Again, what we heard, this history and storytelling, the marketing and branding, as Mayor Reardon was alluding to in her opening remarks, inclusion and accessibility, the hours of operation, the vendor mix. Vendors were an important topic in the feedback that we received, as was that history component. Seating is another area that again came up in the public feedback, and the overall market layout. So again, these issues and these touch points remain very relevant, even coming out of the last round of community input. Overall, in the strategic plan, from when we presented our survey questions, the first being, do you agree that the vision, mission, and core values provide the right direction for the city market? We had almost 87% either definitely agree or somewhat agree, so largely supportive of that vision, mission, and core values. There were some comments that these were obvious. And for us, that's great, because we want to reinforce what is obvious, but people don't necessarily realize. So again, we feel that we've struck the right balance through the input of the engagement and the steering committee for that vision, mission, and core values. When we asked the second question was, do you agree that the strategic directions and priority actions will position the historic city market for success? We had only a marginal drop in that somewhat agree and definitely agree to almost 83%. So again, a very, very overall supportive of the directions that we have presented here. And yes, there are people that are against these directions, but again, we feel that some of those comments that we've received in the survey might be attributable to those that may not have read the document through fully, or are just generally maybe not supportive of change, as it were. The common questions and key takeaways that we took from this, one is just what is strategic planning? Trying to address that a little more clearly in the document. The importance of what a strategic plan is. What is the role of the market? The sentiment from respondents just wanted to get clarity on the importance of what a public market means. They do not want to see this, and we'll say it again later in the presentation, they don't want to view this and for it to become a food court or a shopping mall. They want to know what the role of the market is. So we've tried to articulate that in the latest version. Again, the importance of vendors, the types of vendors, and having them supportive of this. We're very encouraged that groups like Darren at the City Grocer are very supportive of these, as are members of the steering committee. And we have taken our time and effort to work with the vendors in these strategic directions. The seating and entertainment are also important aspects, particularly the seating. As you'll know in the plans, we're looking at bringing more seating inside the market. So we wanted to speak to the rationale and the implications of doing so, and how that impacts and positively revenue and business productivity and overall operations, as we've spoken to in the past, with the benefit and value of a group like Key North, who operate successful public markets. What are those operating characteristics that are important moving forward? We really took away from this that the city market is a treasured landmark in Uptown, and we do not, nor are we proposing this become a mall or food court. And we saw where some of those notions came from in the renderings that we had presented, which might have looked a little too modern for some people's liking. And it wasn't meant that way, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. As we mentioned early on, the survey respondents are supportive of the city market directions, and they provided feedback that we believe will help strengthen and refine the plan and add some clarity where we needed to. The areas of disagreement were generally focused around the market identity and the layout configuration from a 3-aisle to 2-aisle specifically, but also lost within that is sort of the narrative of why we're doing that, and the understanding of components within the mall. Again, we look at the idea of the solarium, and it certainly is needed for structural stability, but maybe there's a different way with new technology to rediscover the value of the solarium as a space. And there is opportunities for the city to be more proactive in communicating the strategic plan with the community as we come out of this. And the last item there is that transparency and reinforcement about heritage protection. Again, it's critical in continuing the public trust. We don't want people feeling we are tearing this down or taking the history away from it. The history is what makes this market such a treasured icon and is important as we implement these strategic directions. I don't expect you to read the little font there, but this diagram is when we looked at and took all the 372 responses and we looked at the various recommendations and feedback, there were certainly some people that viewed on the spectrum of change nothing. This is what we want. There is leave it alone. The market's fine. And then there was that spectrum at the other end where it's tear it down. Now, very little at either end. You could see where the bulk of the opinions were weighted slightly more towards the change, to making some spectrum of positive changes and being progressive. Again, this speaks to the supportive nature of what we feel we've reached. And as with any process, we know that it's consensus building. So we have people that have a very strong passion, maybe against change to any great degree. But there are pieces in this, as David mentioned in the beginning, that will take time to measure off and work through. And using the strategic plan over the next 10 years as a bit of a living document that can adjust and adapt moving forward and through the budgeting processes. So that 10-year vision, again, it combines those medium and long-term actions. One thing we did do, and reflecting on the feedback from the public survey, is we reorganized the core values and strategic directions. And some of these were the way people perceived this diagram as they viewed them as more of a priority, the left to right, if you will, in the diagram as being more prominent. So we just sort of reorganized them a little to be a little bit more clear for those people viewing this document in terms of the storytelling and visitor experience being number one. We also, in the strategic directions, the very first one, again, making the market a place of storytelling and nostalgia, we did change the word previously that we had there, which had said storytelling and pride. We felt that from the feedback we were receiving that the word pride lost its significance or meaning, and really what people were talking about was that nostalgia that they have with the market, both as a physical space and a social and cultural space. So we tweaked the words there and again reorganized some of these directions in their overall ranking, if you will. The challenges and opportunities remain the same from what we had, and as we talked about, some of these have been reinforced and emphasized through the last round of public input. That reconfiguring from 3 to 2 aisles certainly is something that raises a lot of discussion. But as I said, what we've tried to do is provide a further rationale for those that will read the strategic plan and understand why we're making that decision. The heritage preservation, again, remains front and center and right at the forefront of everything we do and every decision we have recommended. So all of these still remain relevant from what we saw before, and in terms of also balancing the resident and visitor needs. Although there were some respondents that spoke to the fact that this needs to be a visitor first, and that is the core business. We tend to differ in that as the uptown grows, as the community grows, that the balancing of the resident and visitor needs is paramount for long-term success. The strategic plan directions, as we just presented previously, this is the new orientation that we have provided here with the storytelling and nostalgia as top of that list, working together to achieve a destination excellence as again another top ranking one. The inclusion is an important part, and we've tried to articulate a little bit more about what inclusion means and for whom that is. And it's realizing that the market is on, and Uptown and St. John in general is on a new trajectory, new residents, new immigrants, new businesses, more diversity, but inclusion for accessibility as well within the market. And again, these elements are so imperative to creating a public space and a valuable place within the community. And the Hopper time piece, bringing that, again, that's part of that storytelling that we think we can bring into the public market. There were various, I won't go into detail into these haven't changed from the last ones, but within each of those strategic plan directions, we have some priority moves. These are sort of those, some of them are low-hanging fruit, some are a little bit more, take a little bit more thought, particularly when it comes to the providing space, item number 4, where we talk about the implementing a 2-aisle program. But also what we've added to that that priority in number 4 at the very bottom is the integrating historic influences in the kiosk and bench redesigns. We understand the sensitivity to the benches, and we feel there's an opportunity to really capture in 2 ways. One, to if the benches are removed, to repurpose them and use them in a way that could be reflected in the outdoor space on South Market Street. They may be used for tables or reintegrated out there as flexible kiosks. But inside, when we look at the reconfiguration of the space and the new benches, we're looking at ideas such as putting out a call for local mill workers or local groups to create the designs. So we don't want to specify what the design of a kiosk is. Let the community reflect on their touch points for heritage and perhaps come up with a design that's more reflective of some heritage elements in new kiosk and bench designs. But again, these are things that we've tried to take from the community's input to make sure we're not predetermining any type of design that could be perceived as taking away from the history and heritage. The layout that we've recommended still remains the same, but what we have also looked at is there was a concern from some that there was a loss of too much space. Even though we were looking at around 600 square feet of leasable stall space loss, we've actually revisited some of the spaces and added a couple new smaller kiosks and tried to bring some of that perceived loss of space and mitigating it. What we also wanted to bring to the attention of the wider audience is that we're also looking through the mezzanine seating area as another improvement, and that itself could present a significant opportunity for rental space, sponsorship revenue, leasable space, after hours types of space for someone like Uncorked, and that adds another element of revenue generation for the city market beyond that could probably more than compensate for any loss in leasable revenue that might come from a couple hundred square feet in leasable stall space. But again, this is also subject to refinements based on how the stalls are designed. But the objective, again, of creating that internal seating presence for the eyes on the market, within the market, is a significant component of the refinements we're looking at. So with that, I will put it forward to the recommendation of the Growth Committee, but I'll also open it up to any questions from the Growth Committee as we look for your support. So I will stop sharing my screen. And
Awesome. Thank you both so much for the presentation. Is there anyone from committee that would like to make comment? Move the recommendation. Deputy, seconded. Councillor Harris, any questions? Okay, this is easy. So on the question, we will say yay or nay to the city market plan. We have 5. Okay, 5 out of 5. Really appreciate you guys. That was a lot of great information, and we look forward to seeing what the implementation will look like once we put this through to council. So thank you both very much.
thanks so much for your time. Have a lovely day. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and that was our only item today. So I'll take a motion to adjourn from Councillor Lowe and seconded by Councillor Harris. Thanks everyone for